In a rapidly expanding omniverse of sci-fi content, two Terrans try to make sense of it all. From the latest to the greatest to the most thought-provoking science fiction content on the screen, we bring you Crowded Space Podcast!
Episode 30, Blast from the Past, Universal Soldier. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm your other host, Jared. Universal Soldier, that is something I had watched, soon after it came out on VHS. Let's see, I did not see it in the movies.
No, I didn't see
really
the movie either.
Don't remember much about it other than I didn't think highly of it then.
You didn't like it?
I mean,
I wasn't a Van Damme fan.
I was a Van Damme fan
You
because
were?
a friend of mine was really into Van Damme. And so it was like, hey, it's as
I was
good
Steven
as...
Seagal because you had to pick. You had to either be a Steven Seagal fan or a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan. I was Steven Seagal.
Okay.
Which everybody's like rolling their eyes.
Yeah, he's really such a fake. Van Damme actually had this stuff. He might have been a jerk,
or even
like
Chuck
him,
Norris
at any
fell
rate,
into that.
so-
And you know what's funny? What the funny thing is Chuck Norris was actually like they tried to scout him for this part, but they couldn't get him, so they got Jean-Claude Van Damme instead.
Okay. Yeah. I can see it with either one of them. Yeah. So yeah, Blast from the Past, we kind of take a new look at old sci-fi. And then today, right, with Universal Soldier, we got pretty much the stars of it are Jean-Claude Van Damme, really known for his kicks and his splits. And then we've got Dolph Lundgren. Who is just known for being just blonde, Germanic looking
now, but he was totally into the action type of genre back then. So, what'd you think of it?
It was pretty much your standard fare action movie. I don't think it did really anything original.
I don't think it had that many lines.
Yeah, I guess it'd be super critical. Essentially, it was an hour and a half excuse to show Jean-Claude Van Damme kicking things.
Yeah,
and
his nudity too.
Yeah.
Lots of ass shots.
Look for something unusual. Something hard.
Stay in shape, don't you?
So it is kind of funny that before we landed on Universal Soldier, we were going to do Rocketeer. It's like, it's not sci-fi. Like, it's such a stretch to call it sci-fi. And then, I mean, honestly, Universal Soldier, it's sci-fi, but it really, doesn't scratch my sci-fi itch.
No, it didn't.
Really, the premise is, we can, zombify and reincarnate lost soldiers. And in this case, our two soldiers were killed in the Vietnam War. And then here, present day, when the movie came back out in 1991, these soldiers are essentially being mind controlled for doing elite, nearly impossible missions. When
I kind of like that whole thing in the beginning when they were showing them off. They're like jumping out of the helicopter and they're jumping in the water, and they're going to take out all those terrorists, and it was kind of cool, that little tidbit. It's almost like I could see that today being a movie in this day and age with that sort of style of this Universal Soldier program to take out the terrorists and be bioengineered to be the top soldier. So
yeah, I certainly been done to death, right?
Yeah.
The perfect soldier, whether they're cyborg or this or that. I mean, when this movie came out, it was heavily criticized for being a ripoff of RoboCop, and rightly so, right? It's like,
RoboCop was
here's
the
a
movie.
soldier. It's not a cop, it's a soldier who died in the line of duty, and essentially was brought back for a clandestine operation that was pretty sketchy, and then because of the previous memories of the lost soldier / police officer,
that's right.
things go wrong.
That's right.
So pretty tired in that respect, but with some really good scenes. That like you were alluding to, them rappelling down the dam early on.
That was pretty cool.
Was pretty exciting.
Dolph, the guy was a physical dude. He had the look.
Yeah, really he checks the
checks
evil
all
German
the boxes
box, even though
that.
he's not
Typical
German.
villain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I guess this is a good time to talk about it while we're talking about Dolph Lundgren, because essentially his character, early on, they show that in the Vietnam setting, he breaks, he has a mental breakdown, he starts killing friend and foe alike.
Yep.
Because he's lost touch with reality. And by today's standards, right, we recognize that is an illness, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that Universal Soldier does really wrong by today's standards. It's vilifying the person with mental illness. illness, right?
Yeah.
There's no attempt to rehabilitate him.
No.
Right? The people that created this project weren't even nearly as vilified as
him.
yeah,
as
yeah.
Dolph.
You know, Frankenstein's monster is more the villain than Frankenstein was,
Yeah.
essentially in this movie.
Absolutely.
So that is, I mean, that would be my sharpest critique of it, other than you didn't do anything
You kind of feel bad
new
for him
here.
You know what I mean? You kind of feel bad that he's gone down this quote unquote dark path because of his PTSD or whatever.
Well,
mental.
Well, if
illness.
it was told, if this story was told today, that's how it would be written. It would be a sympathetic villain.
Yeah.
And that was just not in vogue
Not
back then.
No.
And instead it's like, oh, if you lose your shit in Nam, it's your fault. It's all on you and you're a villain now. So it wasn't intentional. I'm just saying by today's standards, I think that's
well,
how
this
character would be.
I mean,
would be
it's
seen.
a good way to write a villain, and I guess back then, I mean, when you lose your shit and don't have control of your actions, then you kind of go over the top, which he did. Got a lot of issues with dealing with Vietnam and all that. Then
so they give us this quick little blip of what happened back in Nam, and then they cut forward to present day, aka 91, 92.
Yeah.
And again, we see these guys doing their mission, and then crack reporter. Actually, she can't be a crack reporter. She just lost her job, but then she tries to figure out what's going on with the
there's a lot of
Universal
smoking
program,
too. Oh my God,
and-
just letting cigarette one after the other.
Yeah, and it was an interesting time in cinema, right?
Yeah.
It was in this flux of when cigarette smoking was being phased out. I thought it was really interesting because she was smoking at the beginning, and the Universal Soldier essentially got her to quit by throwing her cigarettes away. Like,
The Surgeon General has warned that cigarettes could be hazardous to your health.
The third line in the movie that he had.
yeah, and so long story short, one of the Van Damme's character essentially starts getting his memories back and trying to do the right thing, and Dolph Lundgren's character who goes back to his old ways of trying to take over command and killing everyone that is in his way.
Yep. It's definitely like the old school 80s/90s like villain, totally wipes the floor of all the characters.
Oh, I mean, it's almost beat for beat, car chase, big gun fight in the rain. Just it's by the book action.
Yeah,
it's not bad, right?
That's how it was in the 80s/90s. It was definitely like that.
The sci-fi-ness of this movie is essentially just to have an excuse to shoot the hell out of each other and they don't die, right? Like. They don't explore much of what does it mean to be reanimated and to come back to your own life. Again, there's not much to chew on here intellectually whatsoever.
At least like you compared it to RoboCop. At least in RoboCop, they had a little bit of that. Where kind of like he has a flashback and about his past life. I mean, they did for Universal Soldier a little bit, but I don't think. I mean, Van Damme is not the best actor.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes us appreciate Arnold Schwarzenegger's acting, seeing Van Damme, right? And, to the point where actually in this movie, there's a lot of lines that were not supposed to be comical.
I've been slaving all day making that slop.
The food is good.
Yeah,
but just the way that they landed,
the way they
with
landed.
his expression and his accent, it's like, well, just go with that.
I love the fact that they kind of like swept it under the rug to the fact of he's from Louisiana, so he has that French accent.
Yeah. I was reading the Amazon Prime trivia notes or whatever, and they were saying that that role was rewritten once he was cast to be from Louisiana, so they could have an excuse for his French Belgian accent in there. Like, it was like, thanks. It's the old college try. Of all the plot holes, why do you want to cover up that one? But
I know,
whatever.
right? I know. And I do like the similarities with towards the end when he throws these Dolph is like going nuts and he throws the grenade at the reporter and then he's like, Van Damme's character is remembering the grenade throw, and you're thinking, oh no, she's gonna blow up, and then they blow up, and then you think, she's dead, but she's not. He runs out and she's still alive. Like, dude, she just took a grenade. Like, I guess she's okay.
it wasn't clear how close the grenade was to her. But at least they didn't use the kiss to wake her up. He just kind of held her hand, was like, oh no. And she's like, I'm fine. I have a headache. How do you feel about this movie in terms of diversity?
Well, they had their different Universal Soldiers. They had an Asian guy in there. They had African American. They didn't have a woman Universal Soldier, but they had the woman reporter.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like she was more than just, she wasn't overtly sexualized, like you astutely pointed out in Total Recall. And I talked over that point, I think twice. I was like, yeah, they were very sexualized. Like they had
You're talking over points? No.
No, that doesn't happen to either of us ever.
No, ever.
And I feel like she actually did things that mattered. She had you're right. She had a test of her character. She could have gone away. He had the ticket. She could have been on the bus. She decided to stick with it.
Yeah.
Out of sense of what's right. So I thought that was kind of nice.
And I like that whole scene where she's running. She goes to the base with a cool transformer truck that they were using, and she was taking pictures. And she took a picture of the guy in the ice, and he woke up, one of the soldiers.
Yeah,
I thought that whole scene was kind of cool.
Yeah, she did some detective work.
Yeah,
and again, actually contribited to the plot. So I'm okay
absolutely.
with that. My biggest gripe with her character is this one scene again where she fights off an assailant, and then she's like, I was like, ooh, how did a woman manage to fight off a guy? And she has this line,
I had 3 brothers.
I was like, that's right. That's the only reasonable way why a woman could be able to fight is because she had an older brother. Right? How tired is that trope from the 90s? Oh, I had a brother. That's why I'm tough as nails.
That's how I learned how to fight.
Oh, yeah, heaven forbid that a woman is just independently strong. It's inconceivable. But
well, it wasn't back then.
Well, I guess you could say in terms of American production, the 3 main stars essentially were all Europeans. So it's a German, a Belgian, and
this show made it to video game. It had a video game on it.
Oh, video
Genesis.
game. There's 3 I had no idea there was 3 or 4
a
movies.
Whole bunch, there's a whole bunch of movies on it.
Oh
my gosh, really? They did that many movies on that?
Not bad for essentially just ripping off the Borg.
Yeah.
Right, even down to the eyepiece. Lakota's is eyepiece and
well, that was before the Borg, dude.
Commands.
Was it before the Borg?
No, what are you talking about?
It wasn't? When was Locutus of...
Where is your Star Trek card? That's
dude,
it.
I don't have a Star
You've
Trek
got
card.
one corner left, dude. I cut this off. Gee, I don't even... I think they cancel your Paramount Plus.
I already told you that at Star Wars.
One more corner, they cancel your Paramount Plus account. I'm pretty sure that's how this goes. So, and again, going back to, I'll give credit reluctantly where credit is due with the Amazon little trivia. Credit for was that back in '89, so a couple of years before this movie came out, branches of the American Armed Forces had a call to update their hand pistols to be more offensive instead of defensive, right? In general, you've got your officers wearing handguns,
right?
More as, if you're pinned down, it's not a very offensive weapon,
right?
And so they were looking at, how can we make our pistols more offensive? Some of the people on that apparently, I haven't verified this, saw this movie and saw that essentially they had, Desert Eagles with suppressors and laser optics on it. They're like, hey, it possibly inspired our armed forces to be like, let's put suppressors and laser targeting on handguns to make them extra badass because Van Damme had them and they look cool.
Well, it makes me kind of think about our military. When are we going to reach that point where we take a soldier and we inject them with stuff so they can be all you can be and be the best on the battlefield? That's only around the corner, man. At one point, are we going to be there? I think we might. You don't know what's going on I don't think this is one of those things like maybe in 10 years, 15 years, we're going to see. Well, if you're a Van Damme fan, this is the movie for you. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
If you like Van Damme,
all the action heroes, other than, I'd say Van Damme's one of my more favored ones after Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, he never did anything for me either.
I think it's just...
I think I'm more like too young than Van Damme, than Norris, but...
Yeah, I think I was just a little too young for Chuck Norris.
Yeah,
he was at his peak.
Wasn't even...
He was at his peak when I was 2, so I would just... And my parents weren't watching that sort of stuff, so...
Music? What'd you think?
It's whatever.
Yeah.
It was...
It's not like, oh my God, this
there
really
wasn't a single moment where the music stood out to me.
We've had some episodes of different shows that we watched that is fucking memorable, right?
And
This is not.
This is not.
It hasn't
It's
been.
not one of them.
No,
yeah.
definitely not.
Actually, it's funny. The one most memorable part of this is the.
Are you ready? It's memory clearance time.
That's
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
only
yeah,
thing
yeah,
that
yeah, I
stuck
know
out
what
to
you're
me,
talking
'cause
about.
It's, I mean,
That's
a
it.
syringe to the back of your head's pretty memorable. Okay, if you want a early '90s action movie
It's true.
that
It
you can
checks
turn
that
off
box.
the think switch.
Yep.
That isn't going to probably bother anyone with modern sensibilities. You can watch. You could totally watch Universal Soldier.
And you like Jean-Claude Van Damme. If you're a big fan, that's just going to check those boxes.
Yeah, if you're
Too much nudity
if you're a
for
big
me.
fan of flying roundhouse kicks,
And ass
Then-
cheeks on TV.
yeah, you get to see the half Monty
What are you doing in there?
of Van Damme in this. So I guess that
It's
could
the
be good.
movie for you.
Yeah, but in terms of sci-fi, this is completely skippable. So I guess it was good that I watched this in my car because it's not
You weren't
because
driving, were you?
no,
Okay.
my wife was driving.
Nice.
for the vote.
That was very nice of her.
confidence there.
Technology
But-
today. That is sci-fi right there.
Yeah.
Watching a movie in your car on your way.
because it's not about the journey.
It's the destination. Enjoy.
Bye.